So the penny has dropped, and I suppose in the US it would be that the cent has dropped. And you have realised the moon landings were fake, and the Earth, the universe and space is not what you believe just because it was taught to you. But can you be duped? Tell a 5-year-old that there is no Santa Claus and let's see where that gets you. The problem is that everyone around you has been taught the same thing and still believe the same thing. But you want to share your newfound proofs with your friends and family. I say proofs because you have started down your own road of research and tests, and finally your intuition and logic has prompted you to realise that something is wrong and it just doesn't add up. However, you want to share, but you are brushed off with contempt and abuse. Funny that, maybe just like a 5-year-old over Santa Claus. Say anything else about anything and you'll be met with disagreement or discussion. But now you're met with aggression as though you've really touched on a nerve. So how do you handle this? Well, I suggest that you don't start with, "Did you know the Earth is flat?" It will really trigger an unhelpful response. Trust me. So, where should you start? Consider starting with, could the Earth be at the centre of the universe? No mention here of flat Earth. Now, heliocentrism, sun-centred, and geocentrism, earth-centred, are the historical models of the solar system. Heliocentrism, where the Earth and the planets orbit the Sun, is the scientifically accepted model, whereas geocentrism, holding that everything orbits a stationary Earth, is an ancient idea that was superseded during the scientific revolution. But you can trust the science. Note, with geocentrism, we have also reintroduced the idea that everything moves around the Earth. And just like the Bible says, the Earth is not moving. Here we come to a very important point which usually gets overlooked, and that is the default position, and that anything else requires a burden of proof. Now, what is the default position? If you had never been told or seen any TV or movie showing a spinning globe, what would you believe? If you look up at the sky and see the sun moving across the sky and see the moon shining brightly at night and moving across the sky, would you think to yourself, I'm standing on a spinning ball? This is going off my script a bit, but just having played back that bit, it does make me laugh. I hope it does make you laugh, but also I hope it does make you think, because that's the default position. We're not moving on a spinning ball. Well, until the 1500s, the default position was that the Earth is not moving and is flat. So how is it today? Everyone experiences that the Earth is stationary. The ground is not moving. We look up and experience that everything in the sky moves in relation to us, not moving on the Earth. If you had never ever been taught to the contrary, i.e., some would say indoctrinated, there would be no reason not to think that the sun, moon and stars are moving around the Earth and that the Earth itself is stationary. We fly planes like the Earth is flat and stationary. We build bridges, runways, railway lines, canals, all engineering as if the Earth is flat. And in fact, everything that we do is as if the Earth is stationary and flat. And we use the word horizon, which comes from the word horizontal. Then there are these important points discussed in depth previously, and one can use the scientific method to produce repeatable results. You can see too far. Water is always level. Gas requires a container. The horizon is always at eye level. And science has shown with repeatable results that the Earth is not moving. Many experiments over all the years. From Airy's failure to the Michelson-Morley experiment to more recent laser experiments. All of these come up repeatedly with the wrong answer and confirm the Earth is not moving. Then we come back to, is the Earth at the centre of everything? The problem here is one of a philosophical decision, not science. If we are at the centre, it suggests that there is a creator and we are special and have a responsibility. If we are not at the centre, then we are nothing special, there is no God, and it's evolutionary survival of the fittest. And so we enter scientism. Every prominent astrophysicist or astronomer in history will tell you that science cannot disprove that the Earth is at the centre of the universe and cannot actually prove that the Earth is not moving. But scientists cannot bring themselves to consider these possibilities. Edwin Hubble called it horrific and intolerable, with the Michelson-Morley experiment confirming that there was no proof of Earth rotation. The science world turned to Albert Einstein, who flipped physics on its head in order to keep the Earth moving around the Sun. They threw out the electric field theory understanding of a background medium, which used to be called the ether, and replaced it with special relativity in 1905, which introduced the idea that time and space are linked and introduced the famous formula E equals mc squared, and general relativity in 1915, which changed the idea of gravity as a traditional force and became a result of mass and energy curving space-time. This now results in the science of the universe not working, whereby scientists now have to introduce dark matter and dark energy into the mix, accounting for 96% of the universe, which is invisible and non-existent, though it is needed to make the maths work, which in itself is based on assumptions which are clearly wrong. And if you don't understand what I've just said, don't worry, it's not you. Remember, they will say you're an idiot because you don't understand the science, but few people do. Remember, you're not stupid, it's stupid. If the Earth is at the centre, then you don't need any of this. It matches all astronomical observations and you don't have to claim that anything is an illusion. And if the curvature radius of the Earth has been falsified, then the whole model is falsified because it relies on gravity. Another thing that will be thrown at you is an appeal to motive. Why the lie? This attack will immediately put you on the back foot, and I'm sure you've heard various answers to this, which you can use in your defence. But let me put this to you. Evidence of a flat Earth, which people absolutely refuse to consider, does not require motive. You can still find out the truth without knowing the motive. For example, police find a murder scene with body, blood, perhaps weapons, etc. What happened and who did it? Motive is not required. You can see what happened and the evidence will lead you to the murderer, but motive is not initially required. Later the question will be asked, but it does not stop you from looking at the evidence. For a lot of conspiracies, for example, scientists go missing, without top clearance levels you may never know the reason, but it is not relevant if you are examining available evidence using logic and reason. The last point I want to support you in when talking to friends and family about flat Earth is to remember this. You don't need to know what happened to know what didn't happen. What do I mean by this? This is best illustrated by examples. If I told you I went to the moon yesterday, you don't need to know where I actually was to know that I certainly didn't go to the moon. In fact, you don't need any evidence like timestamps, video or credit receipts to prove where I was. You can certainly deduce, when you think about it, that I certainly couldn't have gone to the moon for a day. And finally, a second example. If I went to a drawer in the sideboard of my parents' home and found a certificate that showed I was adopted, then I would realise for the first time that they weren't my real parents. Who were my real parents? Well, I just wouldn't know. But telling a friend, they might say, with such a big lie, everyone must have been in on it, especially my close family. But my brothers and sisters are younger than me and may not have even been born when I was adopted. They would have no reason not to believe my parents. And if my parents had moved house and location after my adoption, then no one in the area would know, and all the paperwork would be in order for the doctors, the school, and everything else. So, if you find out that you've been lied to about Flat Earth, it does not mean that everyone else is in on the lie. You don't need to know what the truth is to know what it isn't. And that should really give you something to think about.